Christy Fulnecki joining us. We've got an author of the week that is sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. That is in the 8 o'clock hour. And, of course, we're going to get you updated on all of the latest, including an announcement of a big trade deal with the UK. This, according to the latest reports, things are just as Trump said they would. They're coming together. Massively successful deal with India, UK now, also in the works. And so this is what people call winning. And, I just now just remember, even some of you, understandably so, just weeks ago, we're starting to get a little nervous about the media's declaration that the Great Depression was just around the corner, that the stock market was just going to crash. It was going to be slashed in half. Everything that you ever saved for is going to be gone forever, never to be saved. So we don't hear them screaming about the stock market lately. This is another one of those instances where you had Trump saying, hey, while there's this little dip, probably a good time to buy, and it's going to be fine. Then you had all of the politicians, not all of the politicians, the Democrat politicians, the media, and some establishment Republicans. Oh, boy. Oh, this just really seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, my gosh. Great Depression around the corner. I mean, just weeks later. No headlines about the stock market. No, nothing. I've gone days without hearing anything. Unless you're watching like business news or something. But the outlets that were leading with the stock market and the wrecking ball that is Donald Trump, and the chaos and confusion and the instability that it's causing. And oh my God, what are we all going to do? None of that. None of that. Over the last month, we have had lead hysterics stories hysterically presented about the El Salvadorian wife-beating gang member that the media, of course, tried to portray as just a loving Maryland family man. We had the stock market is going to crash, and it's going to be Great Depression. We're going to have bread lines. If you just at this moment stop, wonder what's next? What's going to be the next one? Like the next big end of the world one, where they're screaming with megaphones, lead stories, because they're always, of course, taking every little thing that happens that Trump is involved in and telling you why it's bad. But we get treated every so often to these, well, this one's the real bad one story, and I just can't wait. When you understand how the media behaves, and you realize that it has lost its impact on the American people. The base that wants to be fed hysterics, they're going to vote for the left regardless. So it doesn't really have much of an impact on outcomes or opinions in that regard. But when you realize the lack of real impact that the media has any longer, it just sort of makes it almost enjoyable to sit back and wait. What will be the next end of the world because of Donald Trump? And I know I can't wait to find out. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. Maybe it'll be today. Maybe it'll be a month from now. Time will tell. Right now, though, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy, dense fog before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 72. And looking ahead to Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoors. You know, they can help you stop looking like a fool. What do I mean by that? Just think about this for a moment. You walk out in your backyard and you see your neighbors over there, and they've got this beautifully designed and constructed outdoor living area. It's got a fireplace, maybe a fire pit over here. It's got a little sunken area. You got the Traeger smoker, and then you got a Blackstone over there. You have a nice table, and you look over and your neighbor's lounging out there, maybe with a cigar under the night sky, and you think, man, that just looks awesome, doesn't it? Now imagine, instead of that, your neighbor's just sitting out there in the middle of the yard in a lawn chair. You'd be like, what is that weirdo doing? Why is he just, you tell your wife, you see Philip next door? He's just sitting in the middle of the lawn with a lawn chair out, just sitting there by himself. That'd look weird, wouldn't it?
Again.
Yeah. What is going on? Should we call someone? Is he having a breakdown? Who sits out there in the middle of their lawn by themselves in a lawn chair? Well, of course that looks weird. Unless, of course, again, you have Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, build that outdoor living area. Then it goes from, my neighbor has lost it, today's the day he snapped, to, man, that guy has it going on. That's the difference between not having Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor design and put in your outdoor living area versus having them do it. I recommend the latter of the two. HunterHardscapes.com, also KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. All right, so Trump expected to announce a trade deal with the UK, according to reports. President Donald Trump expected to announce the, quote, major trade deal between the U.S. and Britain today. Writing on Truth Social yesterday, President Trump said the deal would be announced during a news conference from the Oval Office. Quote, big news conference tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., the Oval Office, concerning a major trade deal with representatives of a big and highly respected country, the first of many, Trump wrote, using a lot of all caps. So you know he's excited. He did not offer more details, but saying it'd be the first of many. Of course, I'm sure that's what that address will be today. The Post comes after the New York Times, citing 3 people familiar with the plans, reported that Trump was expected to announce the trade deal with the UK. A deal would be the second for Britain in a week after it clinched a free trade pact with India, something that, of course, we have also had great movement towards as well. I know, we all know, that people who hate Trump, they're just going to find a way to dog on this stuff because they care more about dogging on Trump than actually seeing areas of the country in which things are getting better. That's what that Trump derangement syndrome does. I also know that some people just don't comprehend how this stuff works. And that doesn't make a person an idiot. It was, I believe, towards the end of last week when these reports surfaced that the UK and India were working on a trade deal between the two of them. And some were painting this as, look what Trump's done. Look at this. Here you've got the UK and India working out this deal amongst themselves. I mean, clearly this isn't the plan. It was presented as, I thought everyone was supposed to work out deals with the U.S. first and foremost, and here instead we're like driving India away and into the arms of the UK. Okay. Okay. This is a positive thing because do you know what that means? When you understand this stuff, it just all becomes so clear and so brilliant. It means that countries like the UK are working out deals to be less reliant on China. The plan that Trump has partially with all of this in the restructuring of how everyone in the world is dealing with one another is resulting in countries going, oh, hey, particularly when it comes to China, maybe we should also take advantage in this moment. And maybe to some degree they don't have a choice. They have to work out new trade deals because of what is going on. But forcing them to do that puts them in a position to where they can say, you know what, maybe instead of having some sort of tie that is as significant as it is to China and being so reliant on China, maybe we should start working with a country like India. These are good things. This is all very positive. Plus, obviously, in terms of trying to present it as in, India and UK, as if they're doing something behind our back and this isn't good for the U.S. Just in terms of sheer numbers, when you have the vast majority of countries that are wanting to renegotiate deals with the United States, but you have Britain that maybe now only needs 2, or they're looking to renegotiate 1 or 2. Obviously, all around us, you're going to have these different arrangements and relationships created between these other countries before the United States is able to do it with all of the countries just because of the sheer volume. Countries like the UK may simply be worried about and needing to renegotiate things with 1 or 2 different countries. But the United States is in a position, because Trump put us here for reasons that we're watching play out, to make it better overall for the United States. And so the line is much, much longer. The volume is much, much longer. So, yeah, at the same time, the Trump administration is working through numerous different trade deals. You're going to see other trade deals occurring, but that is a good thing. It is working on levels and outside the scope of just the United States directly in ways that are positive. And I think that's just so incomprehensible. And it isn't even just people who hate Trump and look for reasons to dog Trump. But it's just so different than the way that we've been doing things in this country. And this is an area where largely it did not matter whether the president was a Republican or a Democrat. We generally got the shorter end of the stick when it came to a lot of these trade deals because, let's be honest, the perspective was, well, we can afford it. We're the rich guys. Yeah, they're not necessarily third world country, but, they just, they need a little bit of help, so we'll be the ones to sacrifice when it comes to these trade deals. Well, you do that long enough, and eventually you have all of these leeches that are sucking away from you. And it's not just about trade deficit versus surplus. There's a lot of other different levels involved as well. And a large part of it is national security. Anytime you become reliant on another country for a good or service, they control you when it comes to your need for that good or service. And this is something China has been slowly and deliberately doing for a very long time. And that obviously is a component in that as well. And this effort to isolate China, which is the opposite, if you remember, just a few weeks ago, in which people on the left were claiming that all Trump was doing is driving all of these people into the arms of China. Funny, the line to make new trade deals isn't at China's doorstep. It's at ours. And so we're beginning to see these meaningful announcements made. And today is supposed to be the latest, most recent announcement, and that's with the UK. You think about how deliberately stressful and unnecessarily depressing people who hate Trump make their lives. I'm not one who believes that everything Trump touches is going to turn to gold. I'm not one who believes that every decision Trump makes, because he made it, it is automatically going to work out for the best. The only thing more absurd than taking that position is believing everything he does is going to turn out awful. And these people that work themselves into a stressed frenzy so unnecessarily. I mean, I'm not a big believer in focusing on the negative. I don't believe in denying it, pretending it doesn't exist. But people who choose to make that their focus, anyhow, aside from politics. But these people that choose because they hate Donald Trump to let that control their lives to the point that every single thing they see, they try to figure out how this means that the world is ending, and they have to be stressed out, and they have to get on social media to let everyone know because, my God, the world's coming to an end as we know it. Man, that is no way to live. What are you doing to yourselves? And by the way, when you act that way, people don't like you very much. When all you ever talk about is one subject matter and it's always negative, people don't like to be around you. When all of your postings on social media, it's just one thing about Donald Trump, you're just reposting things that validate your belief system and like, see? Who would have thought this would happen? Donald Trump, bad. At some point, even people who generally like you go, okay, I think I'm going to snooze you for 30 days because you're not that pleasant to be around. What a miserable way to live life. Coming up, talk about this, the airport deal, Newark Airport, and these long delays at the airport, and of course, these are problems for years and years and years and years and years. Years. That air traffic control, people in the industry have been talking about, particularly when it comes to the technology and how far behind it is. Now, if you listen to the Democrats, what actually happened is when Donald Trump got elected president, he somehow managed to take us back in time about 5 decades, that we were actually perfectly fine. There were no technology issues at all in the airline industry. Pete Buttigieg had it all completely under control. He had everything updated. We're cutting edge technology, cutting edge in terms of management, the way that we dealt with things. And then Trump got in there. He's like, no, I'm going to build a time machine and take us back 50 years. That, if you listen to the Democrats, that's what has actually happened. Well, the reality is that's not what has happened. So some of the latest details we've got coming, and including... So part of what really made it through the news, or led the news with this, was there was that blackout, if you will, that outage that caused air traffic control to not just to temporarily lose contact, communication. And then, it got back up after a bit. Obviously not ideal. You don't want that to happen. Now, apparently, some air traffic controllers are on a 45-day trauma leave because of that. They were so traumatized that they can't come to work for 45 days. Can we identify that this is maybe part of the culture problem in the industry? These are high-level. Can you imagine hiring 911 operators, and because they got a 911 call from somebody that just got assaulted and hospitalized, well, I have to take 45 days off. That was too traumatic. Like, maybe this job isn't for you. Springfield's Talk 1041, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Pinnaker Honda officially open doing business in the new showroom and new service drive area. They got incredible deals going on right now. Select retailable vehicles. Whatever your normal trade would be, they're going to slap an additional $1,000 on that. Leasing-wise, 2025 Honda HRVs, only $199 a month. New Civic, leased $199 a month. Free fuel for the summer with every new car purchase. And there was a story the other day about how Ford is just trying to get people to buckle up here because of tariffs. And I thought, just what a different world it is that, so many people grew up and you thought about, U.S. automakers. And here you have Ford that, because so much of them are, certain aspects of it are, built overseas. And so they're talking about tariffs, warning of tariffs. And then you think about Honda Ridgeline Passports and Odysseys, and they're made exclusively in Alabama. What an upside-down world. This is where we live in today. You can take advantage of it. And one of the many places you can take advantage of it and get incredible deals with incredible people, Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. All right. There was this outage that occurred at Newark Airport. And there have been all sorts of delays, and there are a whole number of reasons. If you listen to Democrats, it's because Donald Trump built a time machine and went back in time and undid all of the amazing technological advances that the airline industries and airports, air traffic control had here in the United States. Everything was wonderful, top speed. Nothing at all needed upgraded until Trump took us all back in time. Now, there are numerous factors that have culminated into these recent delays. One of them was in Newark, temporary lost radar and communications with the air traffic or with the aircraft under their control, and they were unable to see, hear, or talk to them, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association confirmed in a Monday statement to Axios. The union, which represents nearly 20,000 controllers, engineers, and other aviation safety professionals, said that due to that ordeal, controllers took absences under the Federal Employees Compensation Act. We're going to get to that in a moment. Now, there were reports, fake news, of course, that they walked off the job. These people walked off the job because they were just so upset about things and the way things are being run, and Donald Trump is awful. And they're like, no, that's not what happened. United Airlines announced in a Friday statement of last week that they would be removing 35 round-trip flights per day from its schedule at Newark, which is a major hub for the airline. The CEO, Scott Kirby, pointed to persistent air traffic controller shortages and technology issues that resulted in diverted, delayed, and canceled flights in the statement. He said, quote, keep in mind, this particular air traffic control facility has been chronically understaffed for years. Now, why is that significant? Because that, Pete Buttigieg is running around as, well, look how badly the Trump administration screwed this. You went 4 years as transportation secretary and you didn't improve anything. Everything is as, like, a day one for Trump, and they've already made moves forward in order to improve things, particularly with technological upgrades. Pete Buttigieg didn't do any of that. It's not like Pete Buttigieg or the Democrats like Chuck Schumer in Congress, who are pitching a fit about all this and trying to capitalize off it, had everything fixed and going swimmingly, and then it was undone by the Trump administration. That's not how that works. Let's not forget they're severely understaffed. And in fact, there's still, I believe, ongoing a class action lawsuit because during the Biden administration, I think it was Biden. It was Obama or Biden, one of the two. I think it was Biden, though, that they refused to hire. There were thousands of applicants who aced the test, but they weren't the right color. They didn't make things diverse enough, so they didn't get jobs. And because there weren't enough people of the right color and the right whatever DEI category they felt they needed more of, they just wouldn't fill these positions. That's the level of insanity of some of this stuff. We got to get a traffic update and then more on what is causing these problems, and the fact that really almost from day one, the Trump administration has been taking steps in order to finally get this industry up to speed when it comes to technology that has been ignored for year after year after year after year.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today, a patchy, dense fog advisory before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 72. And looking ahead to Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Perfect storm, technology failures, and the nationwide shortage of air traffic controllers causing hour-long ground delays at the airport, forcing United to cancel dozens of daily flights in the hub. STARS, an FAA system that processes radar data for Newark, is based in New York. The data is fed to Philadelphia, where controllers handle Newark arrivals and departures. Updates to both systems include increasing controller staffing. This is the upgrades the Trump administration is going to be making, adding 3 new high-bandwidth telecommunication connection between New York and Philadelphia for more speed, reliability, and redundancy, replacing copper telecommunication connections with updated fiber optic technology, deploying a temporary backup system to Philadelphia that would provide redundancy during the transition to the new network, and establishing a STARS hub in Philadelphia so it doesn't rely on a New York feed. This is all pretty common sense stuff. And the lack of all of this is part of the reason that there have been problems. Note that this upgrade did not occur during the previous administration. I think it was on the 5 yesterday, and they had some gal sitting in for Harold Ford Jr., who's a Democrat. And she was talking about how Pete Buttigieg, this is something that he wanted to do. But he didn't do it. As you know, you got this conversation about Pete Buttigieg. What was he doing all this time? Well, he wanted to fix it. Okay. That's how that works? No. I mean, I remember going through the list just a few years ago of all the word changes that the FAA was going through under the Biden administration, because that was a top priority to not trigger people with gender-specific terms, like cockpit was one of the terms that's what their focus was on. And race, and of course with Buttigieg, racist roads, and that is what they were looking at. That while these upgrades needed to take place, they did not take place because of this obsession with transgenderism and DEI. And then whenever we see the fruits of that labor, who do they blame? Donald Trump, of course. Well, it's Trump's fault. Oh, yeah. Okay. Axios, which is left-leaning, at least acknowledged in one of their articles on this that, quote, it's unclear why the Biden-era FAA didn't implement at least some of these improvements before moving control of Newark approach from a Long Island facility to Philadelphia, which may have prevented at least some of the recent chaos. So even Axios, now they don't dig into it, but they know, well, we don't really know why, but for some reason Biden didn't fix this. Might be an interesting thing to track down, sit down with Pete Buttigieg and ask him. Now, this story, however, is culturally part of the previous administration. Now, they didn't create the culture, but they leaned into it. Air traffic controllers take trauma leave after close calls, communication failures in Newark. Some air traffic controllers on a 45-day trauma leave as Newark Liberty International Airport experiences ongoing staffing shortages amid the fallout from communication outages. Under the Federal Employees Compensation Act, air traffic controllers are entitled to a 40-day continuation of pay or trauma leave for mental health conditions like stress, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder from an identifiable work-related incident. Now, some people might think, like a 9/11. You're listening to people. You're communicating with these planes that are being hijacked. You're watching on the radar, and you're getting the calls that they're flying into the Twin Towers, and it's a total chaos. You could maybe see how that would be the sort of thing, and after, particularly given the full blown context of it all, that, I don't know, maybe not 45 days, but you'd have people, it's like, you know what, and I had to take a day or two off, but I had to get back in there because I had a job to do, and this is part of my duty. People rely on me. 45 days because the screen goes out for a couple minutes? The FAA said in a statement Monday, quote, frequent equipment and telecommunication outages can be stressful for controllers. I'm sorry, isn't the nature of that job somewhat stressful? I mean, you are talking about directing aircraft. I would think that there would be, while there obviously you sort of get into a mode, I imagine, just like 911 operators, but there's, because you're dealing with human lives and you're dealing with a lot of different things going on at the same time, you're dealing oftentimes with the unknown. I would just think by nature, you would want people, I hope this just doesn't sound too harsh, but you'd want people who could handle stress, not people who have to take 45 days paid off because they get stressed at work. Those are individuals I would suggest that you find jobs elsewhere, like a pillow factory or, I don't know, something that isn't stressful. I suppose that working in a factory could be stressful. I don't know what job you would take in which there's no stress. Maybe scented candle maker. I don't know. The FAA went on to say some controllers at the Philadelphia TRACON who work Newark arrivals and departures have taken time off to recover from the stress of multiple recent outages. While we cannot quickly replace them due to this high specialized profession, we continue to train controllers who will eventually be assigned to this busy airspace. Well, you think about the cascading effect here too, right? If every one of these air traffic controllers has the same mindset and is so easily triggered into the need for a 45-day paid vacation, well, what about those that are left now trying to pick up the slack for those who have taken this 45-day leave? Is that not triggering? Is that not a stressful incident in and of itself? So what are those people now going to get for it? And then what about the people that are left behind until you have no one? Is this something that eventually AI is going to be controlling anyhow? I mean, it just seems like the lack of advancement in technology when it comes to flight and controlling flight, just from a layman's perspective here, it just seems to be a little bit behind. Maybe it's not. Oh, obviously, the Trump administration has been saying it is. Things do need to get updated. The National Air Traffic Control Union told Fox 5 in New York some controllers at the Philadelphia Terminal Radar Approach Control, known as TRACON, were, quote, so traumatized after temporarily losing communication with the aircraft under their control that they have had to take a leave of absence. And so this is one of the big problems or a big contributor to a lot of the delays because they're even more short-staffed. So it just compounds the problem. So according to the FAA, hey, part of the reason that we have such problems and such stress is because we're short-staffed. So what are we going to do? We got policies in place that make us even more short-staffed because of that very stress. Now, I suspect you've got a couple of different, two primary reasons for these people taking off. One, it's an excuse to take a 45-day paid vacation. Oh, yeah, it stressed me out. Oh, I can't sleep at night. Oh, I just thought about looking at that blank screen for 90 seconds. I just can't get past it. I need 45 days to recover from this. And then you just piddle around. It's a great time of year, in terms of weather. Getting into the springtime, nicer weather, go to the beach. Then you have those that I suppose are so emotionally infantile that they really, truly, genuinely have been so psychological damaged because it was stressful at work that day that they have to take off 45 days. This does not, for me, as someone, I'm not a frequent flyer, fly a couple times a year, once a year maybe. This does not make me feel safer to fly in American skies knowing that there are vast numbers of air traffic controllers that are so easily triggered into trauma that they can't work. I don't want somebody, you think about that. These are the people that are ultimately responsible for your plane not colliding with another plane and you dying. And we find out that that they're this fragile, they are this incapable of taking this level of stress. That does not make me feel better at all. I know this is going to sound harsh, and I know you can't do it because of unions. Those people should be fired. Give them some other job. Or, even if it's within the FAA, transfer them to some department that doesn't involve direct connection to making sure planes don't collide with one another. Is that too much to add? You think about what made us so great as a country. And this attitude, we're Americans, we can do anything, we'll tough it out. When we get knocked down, we get back up. And you look at some of the news items that we have today, some of the issues we have today, and just how weak, how coddled. If the attitude that we facilitate and cater to today were the attitude that Americans had during the founding of this country, there would have never been a founding of the country. There would have been no exploration. You think about in the context of flight, the Wright brothers, and the dangerous, extremely dangerous experiments that they were doing, taking this thing that was very, very heavy and thinking we can get it up in the air. And we've gone from that to having these air traffic controllers that get so triggered because the screen goes by, I got to go home for 45. What has happened to us? What an absolute embarrassment. And I know that it sounds for a lot of people harsh that people in these positions, if you cannot handle the stress of that job, you should not be in that job. When you're talking about people's lives, shouldn't be in it. I mean, I'd love to say, can you imagine any like firefighters or police officers, but you look at areas like Los Angeles, and apparently a lot of them do have that mentality. Oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to, hey, that first fire was really, really scary. I mean, I walked into a room and then a board fell and everything. I got to take 45 days off. Can you imagine? I can imagine, sadly. What has become of us? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com, all of your home loan needs, especially if you are someone that easily gets triggered by the home loan process. These are the folks you need in your corner. They're going to get you through all the hard stuff. I remember Don Carricker once years ago describing it as one of those rat mazes and how they are able to see it from above while you and I are the rat. It's not something where we don't know how to navigate it. We don't know it because we don't do it day in and day out, whereas this is their area of expertise, and that's why with their dedication and their knowledge, are able to make the process so much easier for you than it otherwise might be. And that's why I recommend them for all your home loan needs, refinancing, reverse mortgages. IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com, because you do. Someone texted in, good luck on the next great escape. Hope you don't crash.
Thank you.
I mean, am I overblowing this? It is insane to me that it is apparently acceptable to have people in these positions that after the screen goes blank for, and I'm not saying it isn't serious, but 45 days paid leave. I think to myself, what if a pilot? Do we have pilots that are so easily, like, if the oxygen mask pops down, the pilot's going to freak out because they're so stressed out and triggered over it, and then they curl up in a ball and they got to, I don't want that person flying my plane. People at air traffic control, that if the screen goes blank, which again, not a good situation, but that's when I want someone who doesn't break, who doesn't get stressed out. That's the last person I want in it. Makes me think of Lloyd Bridges, who picked a bad day to quit drinking. If you've seen Airplane. I mean, it's like, what? How do these people get hired? Is there no, I'm just a guy. Just a guy. Which I know, I'm not an expert. I would think there would be some sort of testing, and I don't know how it would be done, but determine whether or not job applicants for a job like this were cool under pressure, or if they panic and freak out. That would, to me, be very, very important. Perhaps more important than anything. If I had somebody, they're like, oh, yeah, I aced all the tests. I went through, I graduated top of the class in FAA-ery, whatever it is called. But then you find out through some sort of testing that they absolutely panic at the drop of a hat and need counseling and have to have, I'd be like, okay, this is not a job for you. We're not talking about one or two people. I don't know that they've given the exact numbers, but there were enough of them that there were erroneous reports that there was a mass walk off, that these people were walking off because they were just, it was like in protest to the Trump administration because they screwed things up so badly. That's what, of course, the media was hoping that it was. But so it's clearly a lot of people.
You would think that they would go through some type of like a simulation or some type of testing before they even got hired, so they could help, prevent that. You would think that they would go through some type of testing.
Maybe they do, and then they do it so those that they realize are, quick to panic PTSD people, they're like, oh, well, no, don't worry about it. You get 45 days free vacation if you do this. That's what we're dealing with here? My gosh. Yeah, like, you could do a perfect example, just like that opening of The Office episode where Dwight locks all the doors and then sets off the fire alarms to see how people would behave. And you got a real glimpse of how do people behave, those that are calm, cool, collective versus those that absolutely panic and just start going crazy. Apparently that is irrelevant when it comes to the people who have jobs that make sure your plane does not crash into another one. Okay, I feel so much better with all this. I think in the minds of some of these people in its government, I think we're supposed to feel better knowing that these people are given 45 days off because they can't handle the job. No, that's not my reaction. Number of you on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk a text line talking about this mass number of air traffic controllers that because the screens went blank, and not an ideal situation, but evidently they are so ill-equipped to do the job that they have to take 45 days paid vacation for trauma relief. Number of you noting that these are probably DEI hires, which DEI is an anagram for die. Someone said, what the hell is FF or FA area? No, so what I was I was FAA FAA area, or I don't remember what I was being silly, goofy, like, whatever it is called. People, I was trying to make a joke. It wasn't a very good one. I
Clearly.
clearly it wasn't. It wasn't good.
Way to
I don't
go.
even remember now what the joke was. I do. I remember.
I was over here editing
FAery.
bumper
Oh,
music, so I
I
didn't
was
hear
saying,
you.
like being trained in FAAery, like
I
like
see what you're saying.
cakery or bakery or something. Anyway, it crashed. Chrissy Filnecki in the upcoming hour. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Oh, I'm just exhausted. Just exhausted from it.
Me?
Everyone.
Wow.
Just everything.
We're getting there. It's Thursday, my dude. What happens after Thursday? We have Friday.
Someone had texted in. They're like, "Do you know when your AM is going to be back on?" I told, because I don't even remember what happened out there. I think. No, I know that, but I don't remember.
Literally, the top of it crumpled.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, they had texted in, and any idea when 1260 AM will be back on there? I was like, well, our engineer's unsure. And it was followed up with, you have power, but your equipment's the problem? Yes. That is correct.
I don't know.
And thank you for reminding me that we have an AM signal.
Next time I'll bring some duct tape with me next time. And make sure I tape together this contraption that I'm looking at here.
Oh,
your double board
that's
situation.
Another story.
Yeah, this is interesting. At least you have a few lights, not all your lights. At least you have a couple of these.
Those are like
best we can.
Like a year ago, we were told, remember, those were going to get replaced like nice ones in the conference room. They're like, oh, don't, because that one will come on, but it buzzes loudly.
Yeah,
it's like a haunted house.
So yes, and it flickers and it buzzes, and so we turn it off because it's loud. It was probably even further back than a year ago that these new type of lights were put in the conference room. We were told, oh, the studio's going to be next, and
and they're like, oh, you can dim them.
Oh yeah, okay.
Excited. You come here, it gets darker and darker. It does. Like I expected like all the lights to be out when I walked in.
And people that don't know, and this is how jacked up it was, when the storm came through, we lost power. We had a backup generator that kept us on, and then the backup generator, something happened. It went off. About 15 minutes later, though, all the power came back on. Well, when that happened, I don't know. Evidently, the surge protectors do not work with things here. Like they don't. They just fry things left and right. It's like, oh, it just happens. And so right now in the studio, the big board that we have that controls everything is sitting atop another one.
Yeah.
Because it quit working. So they brought in another one just to hook it up quickly to see if it would work. And the one below it hasn't been removed. But when Kyle Wyatt came in to do his show one day, he just, wasn't it Kyle that said the thing? He goes, if your working TV sits on top of your non-working TV, you might be a redneck. Yep. But
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like it just wasn't high enough, so we put it on top of another one.
Sponsor, I think, should be for either upgrading your equipment or for a new building and a new antenna situation or whatever. That's why I was on last week, apparently for one of these problems.
I suspect that, yeah. Well, because that's when everything went off, and we couldn't do anything from the studio, so we had to put together a show that would run without us being live in studio. So like a best of and some other stuff that was thrown in there.
It was definitely not a best of. Yeah. It was Sarah put audio in at 8:30 p.m.
If you're interested in being a sponsor for their new building, then your name could be maybe on the front of it.
I figure that but you know what? I imagine our higher ups corporately, they're probably like, "You're on air, aren't you?" Like, well, yeah, I guess we are. Hey, we still do a good show.
That's right. Well, they have a microphone, so I can buy some of the stuff on Amazon and put it together if we need to. Right?
Look at this computer monitor, even though it's on.
I look at that. It gets like suspended in the air. You know?
We had to get a new computer monitor in here months ago because the one just quit working for reasons we don't know. And so a new one was hooked up, but it's on a swing arm for people that don't know. But the bottom. You know, with TVs, they always have a stand, so it can either sit or you can hang it. This one is hanging with the stand on it still.
If you want my kids are really good with technology and come over and fix this for you.
I don't even, some of this isn't even technology. I don't know. But you know what? I take pride in the fact that we keep trucking along and we keep doing it. We this award-winning radio that we keep putting out.
Station of the year.
That's right.
Yeah. It's
so
not 1 year.
People that listen to the show. There are.
Yeah, that's true.
you go? Courthouses, wherever.
I want to say
Yeah.
hi, and I didn't catch his name. If he's listening, I guess I could text him because he texted in on the text line. But I stopped in Casey's, the one by Menards,
Oh yeah.
the other day. I forgot what day it was. And anyway, so I just happened to meet a listener who worked there, and just a really, you meet some people, and you're like, this is a really nice anyway. So, but I don't know his name. But if you, Mr. Casey's, I
Okay,
guess I'll
that's
call him
good.
in. So if he's listening, you want to say hi to him.
That's nice.
There we have it. All right. Well, let's do some news. Christy Fulnecki's here,
Yes, everything's
and
fine
then
now.
we'll talk
be
about
okay.
things. We'll talk about things.
Yes. And I can now counsel the FAA employees.
Yes. Those that have been so tricky.
Yes. Because I've been flying a lot lately. So
Don't you feel better knowing
Yes.
that that's oftentimes who's in charge?
I know.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy dense fog before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy, and a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 72. And looking ahead to Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
I should have asked you. Can you do some audio over there?
Oh, yeah.
We'll start with the. I don't even know what it's something maybe about Biden. Did I save something? Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, this is another thing that I can't play audio like normally because of the storm 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, she said she had to do it on her computer.
Yeah. So anyway, now
It's okay.
like she doesn't have enough to do over there, and it doesn't sound as good, but we'll get it fixed eventually.
Okay.
One of these days.
You know, I have to mention
Yeah.
something about.
Please.
So not last weekend, but the weekend before, we were at Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and that's a really great people watching place.
Oh, I bet.
And you can guess what political party maybe most of these people are from, but it was interesting, the shirts. So, and my husband reminded me of this morning. He's like, yeah, I remember there were Gulf of Mexico shirts of Mexico.
Yeah.
And then another lady came out.
We're really showing us.
And I think out of the, I think it was at the Blues tent, because they have, all different, they have main stages, and then there's, 500,000, 800,000 people that go to Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and it's over 2 weekends. And so one lady had a t-shirt and it said GOP WTF. I'm like, GOP? Why are you wearing this shirt around? And then a couple of the artists, started talking about politics. I was in the gospel tent.
Over it.
I know, I was in the gospel tent, and then this lady that her family had been preachers, and she's a great singer in New Orleans, African American lady. She's wonderful, but she was kind of went from preaching, then she was like, well, these dark times that we're living in, and we need Jesus, which I understand. I agree with that. But she kind of started going on this political thing. And I thought, people just sing. And then, of course, we saw some interesting, Harry Connick was there. He was actually great. I mean, he's very, very talented because he's from that area. And then we saw Cheap Trick. Talk about so funny. I haven't seen, there's a couple like really big hits they have. And then Dave Matthews played.
Of course.
Yeah. And then he did the same thing.
Yeah.
And he started talking about this like dark.
Get over it. Get over it.
I was like, what are you talking about? Like about half of this crowd, because there are, conservatives that go too, I will say, that we've met, when we go to the concerts. But everybody was having a great time. I mean, there were probably 50, 60,000 people that were there. I was like, they're all having fun. And then you're like talking about these times that we're living in that,
that's the thing about it, the left. They're just insane. So here you have an event that people are paying for what reason? Just to have a good time. And you see that they're having a good time. They're like, now we'd better do a reality check and make sure everyone knows how awful life is. Like, what is...
I know.
Shut up.
It was like, okay, if you could picture this as beautiful weather outside. I mean, there's literally 50 or 60,000 people because it's inside of this big racetrack. So you're like on the inside of it. People are on the outside. Everybody, like, no violence, just great time, outside. And then he just starts talking about the state of affairs in America, and I'm so glad that you're here and that we're all here together.
It's like going to a wedding that everyone's all excited about, and then there's somebody that is, going to get divorced, and they go around telling everyone, like, and whining about it. And it's like, this is not the time. People are here for a reason. You can save that news for later. People are paying money to go to a concert to have a good time, with this instinct to be like, okay, everyone, now let's talk about how horrible life is right now. You know what? Have a different concert where people know up front, hey, if you want to pay for somebody to tell you how horrible life is right now, this is a concert for you. We'll just come and talk to you about how awful. So, instead of taking an event in which people go to have a good time, but what's wrong with
you can always tell, because you look around and people are like shaking their heads like, just sing, just stop the lecture.
They're obsessed. I mean, there's an illness.
I've seen all these, like last night they were showing this big statue of this black lady in the big square,
that black chick.
Yeah, and everybody, if you see, and then they're going through this big photo shoot, all the Democrats like showing pictures of them. I don't know what the purpose is, but everybody is so angry.
In the picture, yeah. Now, New York is the same city that just a few years ago took down a statue of Thomas Jefferson, and now they're selling some random fat black lady.
That's right. And it's actually, it's not, I don't think it's even a
No,
person.
it's
I
not.
think it's a made up person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was on Jesse Waters or something. And they were interviewing people like, "Do you know who this is? Do you know what this is about?" Everybody's like, "It's a
Jeez.
huge statue in Times Square." And I mean, you pay all this money; it's so expensive to go to New York as a tourist, and that's what you see is like some angry person that you assume is American, but they didn't do anything. Like you would think if you had a statue that you would have at least done something. But they're just so like miserable, and I thought,
They are.
"Are you
I
kidding
think
me?
it's
This is-
yeah, and I find it just hilarious. These people that really think they're making some sort of point over the Gulf of America, and then go, "Oh, to me, it's Gulf of Mexico." Like, okay, have at it, whatever. But it's like, why does that? Why do you even care? Well, why would Trump do that? I don't know. Why did Obama change the name of Mount whatever it was? He changed it, or all those military bases, or aircraft carriers. I mean, every president that comes along changes the name of something.
Yeah,
This is
well,
nothing new, but it to me, what people who wear those shirts that are like, "Oh, Gulf of Mexico," all they're doing is displaying their ignorance because they have no clue that this is nothing new.
I
That every
know.
president changes the name of landmarks or the name of aircraft carriers, or that they all do it, but they're so ignorant. They have no idea. They think that this is, it's just something Trump did. No, it's not just something Trump did.
That's
This is something they all do.
I know, and it's so crazy. I mean,
Idiots.
luckily we live in America and they can wear those shirts, okay? But still, I mean, half of them are just miserable, and I'm just like, I'm so surprised that this is the campaign,
They
and
like
this is
being
the
unhappy.
well, it's just so funny because Trump has backed them all in a corner that they're literally like cheering for terrorists. So good luck on that.
And
I
wife
mean,
beaters and
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what it is that really they just can't stand. I mean, it started from the beginning with Trump. They just can't stand him. They just go crazy.
Very broken people. All right, we'll take a break and want to play audio. Joe Biden sat down
Good,
his
yeah.
very first interview post
Oh,
presidency, and he decides to do it with a foreign newspaper to trash the president. And by the way, there used to be this sort of rule, unspoken rule in this country that past presidents didn't go around to other countries and the world and trash the current president.
Well,
But
that's what we had class.
yeah,
right?
evidently
Yeah.
that's out the window.
Yes.
Joe Biden's first post-presidential interview was with a foreign news outlet, and he took the opportunity to trash on America's choice for
Yeah,
the current
right.
president, because that's what classy people with dementia do. And here's a clip from that interview with the BBC.
Did you leave it too late? Should you have withdrawn earlier, given someone else a bigger chance? I don't think it would have mattered. We left at a time when we had a good candidate. She was fully funded. And what happened was I had become what we had set out to do, no one thought we could do. And become so successful on our agenda, it was hard to say, no, I'm going to stop now. I meant what I said when I started, that I think I'm prepared to hand this to the next generation. It's a transition government. But things moved so quickly that it made it difficult to walk away, and it was a hard decision. But regrets then? No, I think it was the right decision. I think that it was just a difficult decision.
It is good every so often for him to pop back up for us to remember what we had dealt with.
Yeah. He said in an interview about how wonderful he was, and he was just too great,
successful.
Successful, is that what it was?
It's like that,
yeah.
That's why you got dumped. You were so wildly successful at everything you did.
I heard somebody say last night, I don't know what show it was. They're like, that's like a husband going through a divorce saying, it was such a great husband that I was getting a divorce.
Yeah, she was leaving me just because I was too good. I mean, she's just too good. Well, and I the whole premise of the question, anyhow, that he decided to drop out. Can we just get with the reality and the facts here that he was overthrown by his own party?
I know.
They make it, and even the reporter is like, "Do you think maybe you should?" Like, Biden had no choice in the matter. His own party had threatened to, oust him under incompetency. And, his chief of staff, it was one of his top people, had said the real nail in the coffin was whenever they got the donors to just cut him off completely. Right. And he said at that point, there was no choice at all. I mean, the money was cut off. But this la-la land world that the media and the Democrats live in, where they still act like it was just something Biden one day decided without any outside pressure whatsoever. He just up and thought, you know what, maybe I won't run for. I mean, these people.
He could barely talk too. I mean, if you look at it, he looks like he's searching for his words. I mean, but you could
at least understand. The fact that he finds them at all is somewhat impressive.
Yeah, I know that's right. On the edge of your seat. Yeah. I mean, what is this guy going to say?
Is he going to come back? Is he?
That's right. I mean, I'm thinking like he's been doing this tour or whatever. I don't know what it is. Apology tour.
Well, and I keep hearing, and even Democrats, there was I forget who it was. It was a Democrat strategist or something on with Mark Halperin, and just saying that it's just hard to watch. But what he asked the question rhetorically that a lot of even Democrats are asking, like, why is he doing this? Why?
Yeah, and you put yourself at so much risk, because what if you die when you're in the middle of the interview?
Well, what does he care?
What I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
But it's not like the Democrats are clamoring for. It's not good for them as a party.
Yeah, right.
Because every time they don't just see him, but they remember that Democrats were all telling us he was fine, he was perfect, he was the sharpest guy in the room. And so it's a reminder not only at how just dangerously incompetent he was, but that they were all covering for him and acting like we were. It was gaslighting. It really was. Acting like we were just making it up. We were like it was deep fakes. And oh my gosh.
It's because of his personality disorder and probably Jill's too. Because if you're always used to being the center of attention and then suddenly that you're not and nobody's even talking about you, then you have to, circle all of these. I guess he's going to be on The View today or something.
Oh,
so you can be, so you can be the center of attention to make yourself seem like you're still relevant, which he's not. But then he mentioned something about Kamala she just needed more time, and that's why she lost. I mean, literally, she needed less time.
Well, and that also defies. It's just these people. It's so frustrating because it's
We don't
not
get too
even in touch
frustrated.
with reality. The best that she did in polling was during that first 2 weeks before she actually had to start campaigning, and every day that went by, it got worse and worse for her.
Yeah.
I mean, another month, and Trump may have won 49 states. I mean, just like, what world in your mind do you think, okay, with all the hype, she was doing somewhat okay in the beginning, and then it went down, 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 down. What world do you think that making it go long, I keep digging the hole,
Yeah,
all of a
because
sudden it's going to start, and people are like, you know what? I actually like word salads.
I know.
I like
Well,
totally
plus,
incoherent cackling
yeah,
hens.
natural disasters and other things happening where she doesn't even show up and goes down to the border, to get a picture taken.
We got Christy Fulnecki here. We're going to get a traffic update, weather, all that good stuff, and continue on. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Today, patchy dense fog before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy, with a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 72. And looking ahead to Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73. And Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, spring is in full swing, and whether you need an AC tune-up before that warmer weather hits, or maybe you're a person who suffers from allergies and you need an indoor air quality test to help reduce those allergens, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air are the go-to guys for all of your HVAC needs. For over 35 years, the Foreman team, they have been bringing HVAC expertise to the KSGF listening area. They offer residential services, commercial services, and they also have a 24/7 emergency service line in case something just happens to pop up after hours. I've used Foreman Mechanical quite a few times since I moved into the Fixer Upper farmhouse, and they're quick and they're affordable. So for all of your HVAC needs, reach out to Russell and his team today. You can find all of that contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
We have that Bernie Sanders audio.
Oh, yes. Let me get it.
Bernie Sanders, he and Ocasio-Cortez have been going on this anti-oligarchy tour,
Yeah.
really railing on the rich.
What?
Yeah,
What is that?
one of my favorite stops he did was at Coachella, which is nothing but really rich white people. And yeah, and Coachella is owned by a man who got all his wealth from the oil industry.
Yeah.
And so here you have all these rich, white, young liberals that are there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just such
That's a real
it's such hypocrisy. Such hypocrisy. Well, and he's also flying around in private jets doing this. I mean, everything. Well, so not not Britt Humes, but Brett Baer, special report Brett Baer. Ask him about this.
Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour, paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No, it doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that.
I want to play this audio because this is true hypocritical leftism. And because I need to. That's their perspective on everything. Everything they want to deny other people.
Yeah.
When you say like, yeah, but you do it. Well, but I need to.
Just like during COVID.
Yeah, like during COVID.
Right, exactly.
I remember there was this clash when Rosie O'Donnell had a talk show. She had a TV talk show for a while, and Tom Selleck came on the talk show, and all she did, he was promoting a movie. And he was also, at the time, I think he was spokesperson. He had some position with the NRA. And all she did, spent the whole time just railing on him for that. And so it was later pointed out that she has private bodyguards that have firearms. And she's like, yeah, but I need them for my safety. It just escapes these people that how hypocritical they are, and that I guess they're fine with it. They just think that the rules don't apply to them.
Yeah.
And so every time,
because they're elites and
you see
better
it
than all of you.
If somebody like John Kerry, it's pointed out, hey, you're always going on and on about the environment, but you take these jets. Well, I need to because I have to get to these events. So no one else needs these things, but in their minds, they're special. And so when it comes to flying around in private jets, like some sort of oligarch, and Bernie Sanders is like, well, what else am I supposed to do? I can't just ride a regular airplane around. And this weird justification in which he justifies it by saying that Trump does it. All right, but you say that you're fighting against people like Trump. Yeah. But then you justify doing it because those people are doing it. This is where I completely reject this assertion that Bernie Sanders is, well, at least he's honest and authentic. He is not. No, he's not. He is just as fake and as much of a liar as any of them are.
And look who he was speaking to. I mean, half the people have no idea what their tour is, okay? They're at Coachella. I mean, if you see everybody's worried about their outfit, they have no clue what they're talking about. And then the other half, they're elites too. And so they're the ones that, all those elected officials are the ones during COVID that, defied all their orders and all their mandates. But, all you little people have to do it. Yeah. So it's kind of ironic that he was in California doing this because that's where you saw the biggest hypocrisy of them not following the rules that they were laying out for everyone else. But I mean, it's so, I mean, I don't know what the size, do you know the size of these rally things are having? I mean,
they've been saying some of them are like 9,000 or 10,000, but here's the thing. There was an analysis done and where they, they're able to, based off cell phone data, they can, what do they call it? I forget what they call it, but they're able to identify cell phones, and they found like 90% of the cell phones that are identified at one event are also at another. So what that means, they've been trying to portray it as, they show up in Denver and all these people it's the same people. It's virtually the same people that are just traveling around with them. So these aren't organic events in which all over the country where they pop up, tens of thousands of people show up. It's the same people.
Yeah, and they can be
over
paying
and over
those
again.
People, or
well,
they must be unemployment because they don't have jobs if they're able to go around with them. Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but you know what? We're in charge, so I mean, they're going to have so many problems getting elected in the future. I hope you always say that, but then they come back with some crazy thing.
Well,
But
there are some stupid people out there.
well,
I mean,
that's true.
how it is that, I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, aside from demonstrating she's an idiot, this is a woman who proudly was responsible for the loss of thousands of very good paying union jobs when
Right, yeah.
Amazon wanted to come there. And they still vote her back in. I mean,
Well-
look at every inner city that gets run into the ground. They vote, and even if it's not the same person, they vote just a carbon copy. And
Yeah.
they're stupid people.
Well, I was telling you earlier in New Orleans at Cantrell, and then after the terrorist attack on January 1st, and our cab driver, she was saying how much everybody hated her, and you know that they were trying to vote her out, and you know I don't know what goes on, how their election's set up, but she said, "Man, our crime's down though. I mean, once they came in for the Super Bowl, and she said they've stayed here and they've increased the police." And I said, "Well, that's what it takes is a federal government taking over one of our cities to make it safe and clean it up."
Well, you see I mean, I get torn on it. New York, these trans de Aragua gang members that attacked police officers the
Yeah,
other
right.
day. And they're just brazen about it. They know in these areas in which you have Democrat prosecutors and Democrat elected officials, they're in charge.
Right.
That's their mentality. And it's because it's been proven to be true. So you've got these gang members that one of them as young as 12 years old, and they get arrested over and over again. And what these terrorist organizations / gangs do is they get minors because they know, particularly in areas that are run by blue prosecutors, well, we're not going to lock up some 14-year-old. So they use young people knowing that they essentially just get a free pass to commit whatever crimes they want. And so they become so brazen about it. And on the one hand, I'm like, you just want to see, okay, Trump on a federal level is in charge, go in there, clean them out. But on the other hand, it's like, you know what? You people voted for this.
Yeah.
You people in New York, and as long as it stays there, fine. Have at it. People in Florida aren't. You don't see these attacks happening down in Florida, I
mean, defense of those people though, because I'm thinking about some. You know, I had talked about that FBI agent in Los Angeles that told me about how some of these elections are run. You know, if you have a rigged local city election, I mean, it's kind of hard, you know, in some of these places to overcome that.
Oh, well, to that, our
Yeah.
author of the week coming up, he's from California, and he talks a little bit about that. He actually, several years ago, had a home invasion by, it was either MS-13 or Trans de Aragua, before the rest of us were even talking about it. And he learned that they pretty much run things. Like, this isn't theoretical. This isn't
yeah, right.
that they run certain, even in terms of government entities in California and in other areas of the country right now. So yeah, that
Well,
author
you know,
will be up in the
gangs
next
are
hour.
the mafia now, and I've seen some crazy things happen in Missouri in the court system. And so you would be surprised. This happens in a lot of different
Yeah.
areas with government, even local and state governments.
And what helps breed it is when you have a political party that downplays it for political reasons. And that's what is somewhat ironic about this whole illegal immigration debate, is that you've got some people on the left that say, well, these people who come here, they have no other choice because, you know, the towns and villages and cities they live in are run by gangs. And then they come here, and then Democrats facilitate gangs running cities and apartment complexes right here.
Yeah.
So the very thing that they run to get away from ends up happening here. And part of the reason that it flourishes so much is because whether it's El Salvador or, well, El Salvador doesn't have this problem any longer, but some of these South American countries is because the local politicians ignore it. They say it's not that big of a deal. It's overblown. And that's what you have Democrats doing.
Well, yeah,
he's just because he has gang tattoos, that doesn't mean he's actually in a gang. It's the exact
Well,
same
they
thing.
look like idiots. You know, but you realize your listeners do, but what a big job this administration has and these cabinet members. I mean, thank goodness the best thing they ever did was classify those gangs as terrorist organizations so they could go in and get it. But I mean, Bondi and Cash Patel and all these people. I mean, yesterday I had the big press conference that they arrested all of those. It's the largest fentanyl bust ever, I think.
Yeah, it was one of the gangs.
Yeah, and so I mean, they're doing everything they can, but I'm thinking you have a huge job. You're covering the whole United States, trying to get all these people.
And when you have elected officials working against you, or judges that are trying to help these people evade capture.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started.
Makes it all that much more difficult. Geo-tracking. Thank you, Michelle, who texted that. And that's what I was trying to think of with the cell phone analysis. More with Chrissy Fulnecki coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Sometimes interesting to turn on a network like CNN in order to get a sense of how different the priorities are versus what average Americans are worried about. And so there was this panel discussion that was occurring on CNN, and the left was all up in arms because of the moving away from focusing on transgenders in the military. And just and being like, you can be whatever you want, but you're not going to come get surgeries. You're not the taxpayer. This is not a focus. This is not what the military's about.
Yeah.
And that's the way it always was up until the last administration. But of course, the left always acts like, no, we've always had transgenders that get sex change operations and this and stuff. We've always had that until Trump came along. No, that's not the case. But of course, there were a couple of voices of reason. One of them was Scott Jennings, and there was one of the left-wing panelist on there was talking about how what was part of what was so troubling about this is that as a society, we Trump here, he's targeting the most vulnerable, and we should be looking out for them. And Jennings was like, so your argument here is that we should, the U.S. military should be recruiting the most vulnerable amongst us to be fighters?
I know, that's right.
But that is the complete irrationality of these people. On one hand, they're claiming that they're just as strong and there's no, but then on the other hand, they're like, but they're so fragile that we have to take care of them. Well, which is it?
Yeah.
Which of these two categories do you want to put them in?
Sounds like your FAA people that just took off for 45 days.
But they're never really forced to answer for those contradictions. And I guess I shouldn't say they're not forced to, because if you present them with it, then they just go off on a tangent. When you say, now, wait a minute here, you said this, but then they'll just go on about Trump.
The good thing is, some of those shows, though, there have been Democratic consultants that have at least said, hey, like, get a clue you're not with where the American people are.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen that, which never happened before, and it wouldn't have happened if they would have gotten demolished in the last election. But I mean, you have some Democrats saying, even I think it was Buttigieg or somebody yesterday was talking about how they were disconnected from the American people. I thought, yeah, I mean, you were a train wreck from beginning to end, and you were disconnected from everything. You know what I mean? But
well, and they try to do these false comparisons, and they kept throwing out, well, if transgenders are banned, then Trump could ban black people from the military. It's like, first, why would what? And then what they do is they put the burden of, like, so they'll say to him, well, what's the difference between banning trans and banning black people? And instead of like, well, no, why don't you explain to me how they're the same?
I know, that's right.
That you're the one who needs to explain that.
And don't focus on the categories. There's no focus on any categories. And that's what Hexas said when he was at my daughter's at the Naval Academy. He said, your only purpose here is war fighting. That's your only
right.
purpose. And it made the kids feel relief because then you don't have to, be in some category or whatever. And I told you about, I think I talked about it last time about the transgender. They did have a professor at the academy that ended up getting fired, laid off, whatever you call it. But I mean, he said that this is not your focus. Your focus is to be a war fighter. And I mean, thank goodness, clarity of purpose.
Well, and we almost lose track of that point because they get so obsessed with talking about not the purpose of the military, I mean the left here, but the individual. And you hear it in their arguments. Well, it's unfair to the trans person. It's discriminatory to the trans. This is not about them. That's not the point of the military. It's not a club. It's not a make yourself feel good club. And like, we can't have discrimination. Of course we have discrimination. How many 500-pound people do you see recruited into the Army?
Yeah.
You don't, because there are discriminatory standards that are put into place for reasons, presumably, or at least they should be, to make sure that we've got the best, strongest, most effective fighting force. And when you find anyone who is not going to add to that and may even take away from it, then you don't allow them in.
Yeah.
So yes, that is discrimination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the whole concept of this transgender is opposing, implementing your will on someone else, because you can go and do whatever you want and dress and whatever lifestyle you want to have in America, but it doesn't mean you have to impose on everyone else. So, I mean, go do your own thing and stop talking about yourself. Again, mental illness with the Democratic Party. I mean, it's a mental illness that we allow, to invade our culture, but not anymore. I mean, they can keep talking this nonsense, but they're not going to get elected for 80 years, hopefully, Democrats.
Steve Volnecki with us, another traffic update. Christy Volnecki here. Do you have your real ID? Do you have that yet?
Yeah, actually, I just got it. It came right before we flew to New Orleans.
I don't have. I don't have one.
Well, they said that you can
use your
take
passport.
your passport.
That's just what
so it's fine.
When my license expires, and I guess I probably won't have an option at that point to get my license renewal automatic, because I've heard some people say, "Well, I'll never get the real ID." I don't think you'll have a choice.
I don't think
you have a choice not to do it now, but if you don't get a driver's license, but once your driver's license expires and you go to update it, I'm assuming that the real ID would be the only upgrade.
And if your license is not expired and you go get it, you have the same expiration date of your license before. Okay. So just FYI, that's what happened to me. But
the Missouri Director of Revenue, Trish Vincent, according to Ozark's first story, said only 46% of Missouri license holders are in compliance with Real ID. And it seems like a real low number. But here's the other thing: there are a lot of people that they just don't fly.
Yeah,
and they have no plans on flying. So if you aren't, not everyone flies. I think people who fly often forget that because it's a mode of transportation that they're accustomed to, and you kind of live in your world. But there are a lot of people who just never will fly. They have no interest in it. They don't want to go anywhere, and they never will. Now, things change, and then at some point they may. But
I think the whole
this
thing is so stupid.
I agree.
know.
I think the coverage of it, the whole presentation of it, just is an example of how we kind of hype things unnecessarily. And we talked about the news stories, and it shows people lines out of the DMV. I'm like, what are you doing now? If you don't have a passport and you don't have a federal ID, and all you have is a non one of these real IDs, or you don't have one yet, and you're going to fly in 2 days, then I can understand where you're like, oh crap, I need to rush and get this.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people, they didn't, I think, even because of the way the news covered it. I mean, virtually every news story was about how if you're going to fly, you have to have real ID. That is not true. And a lot of people just thought that was the case, and it's like,
Well,
I don't know. It's just
been easier if we would have just been illegal the last few years. So another law that
right,
is,
yeah, I know.
another law.
Well,
It's if you're a law-abiding person,
and
then everything
yes.
is a pain. But if you're
right,
illegal,
exactly, and
then hey, life's pretty easy.
Yes, this juxtapositioning with these two things, and some of the same people on the left in particular that are like, I don't understand why you just don't do it. I just go get it. Why don't you just comply? Why do you got to be some nut job? Are the same people who say illegals shouldn't have to come here legally.
Yeah.
Why should illegals? Oh, you expect them to have papers? What is this, Nazi Germany? By the way, go get your real ID right now.
Right.
You don't see the contradiction here.
Push this whole stupid real ID are the ones that wanted the legals here anyway. I mean, it's so stupid. I've got to mention this, but
you got 10 seconds.
At Columbia University, did you see this whole protest in the library with the Palestinian kids that went to school there? They need to kick all those kids out of school. They all had their face covered, and they were destroying the library at Columbia.
But anti-Semitism is awesome.
I thought the best thing about that is that they checked their IDs before they left the library and arrested them.
Christy Filnecki, thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.
News in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. I am Nick Reed. The timing of one of those last ads is convenient. It was about like an online do your own will and trust thing or whatever. It kind of reminds me of, to some degree, Rocket Mortgage, where it's the internet, it's fast, it's easy. Sometimes fast and easy isn't best. Ozarks Elder Law, I know many of you know Lori Rook, the times that she's been on the program. Of course, she ran for state office as a conservative, as a hard fighter, and she carries that over, obviously, into all aspects of her life, and that includes helping families prepare themselves for the unforeseen circumstances, or sometimes foreseen circumstances of death and caretaking, and she understands that oftentimes people get screwed over when they don't have to because of a lack of planning. And it's not like you did anything wrong, but in the environment we live in today, it's not like the good old days where, well, I wrote on a piece of paper, the kids get the farm, and so that's all that matters. Government just doesn't work that way any longer, and if they can sneak in there and take over, they're going to do it without any question. Flat service fee, I think it's very important. A lot of people, they understandably don't want to start in the process because they're like, all right, well, how much per hour? And then they'll get back with me, and then I do a 15-minute phone call, and that rolls into a half an hour charge at $100 an hour, whatever. That's not how it works with Ozarks Elder Law. It's a flat fee service, and you'll know ahead of time what it's going to cost to have done what it is you want to have done. So whether that is a caretaker situation or protecting the family farm, or you want to make sure that your kids are able to take over your home when you pass along, but you don't want them to get screwed over when it comes to taxes. These are all things that they're going to help navigate you through. And again, you'll know up front what it costs to have all that taken care of, so you don't have to worry about being nickeled and dimed to death based off of the quote clock. OzarksElderLaw.com, also KSGF.com with Nick's endorsements. You can find there. Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I did want to share with you a story, Trump offering to help Obama with the presidential library disaster. The building of the presidential library for Barack Obama has just, cost overrun, delays. The people behind the project have been so focused on DEI policies that it's causing things to cost more and become less effective and efficient, which is what DEI does. When you focus on things other than the job being done well, then you get a job that's not done well. And so Trump made an offer that he said, hey, look, President Obama, if he wanted help, I'll give him help because I'm a really good builder. I build on time, on budget. He's building his library in Chicago. It's a disaster, which, of course, is true. Now, the left would watch that library get burnt to the ground before they ever let Donald Trump actually help them with it, which shows their perspective on things. But I do find this as yet another example in which Donald Trump proves to be really, really bad at being a racist. We've been told how racist he is, that he is a white supremacist. We still get told these things. And yet here he is again offering to help the only former black president that we have in existence. Only black president ever, and that's the one that he offers to help? That seems really odd for somebody that is a white supremacist. Traffic in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today, patchy, dense fog before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 72. And looking ahead Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Read, it's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author, John Wilson. Varsity Blues Scandal Within the Scandal. Love this whole concept because it is dealing with something that made headlines, but John's story did not. And of course, that is not going to come as a huge shock for a lot of you who understand the way that the media works and how it is that politicized stories end up operating. I want to thank you for being with us. And a lot of people are going to remember the Felicity Huffman, the Lori Loughlin a few years ago getting in trouble because of they were essentially buying slots for their children into school, and this was of course seen and painted as the privilege. And the hammer really came down on some of these individuals, people that were used to seeing on television as actors and actresses being held accountable, and it really made headlines. But there were a lot of people that got caught up in this that were a totally separate story, and that's where John Wilson's story comes into play. And if you would, just so people know a little bit about your background, you weren't exactly raised privileged, were you?
No, not by any means. I grew up really in a very different world. I grew up in poverty. We grew up in the projects of Hartford, Connecticut, the Bowles Park housing projects. I had a single mother and three half siblings. I picked tobacco from the ages of 12 to 16 full time to help my family scrape by. So I didn't have any privilege. My mother had an eighth grade education, and that was it. And so hard work and education transformed my life. It enabled me to escape poverty and the projects and to build a successful career. I'm very thankful for that. And we were able to live the version of the American dream that we wanted up until March of 2019, when I was falsely arrested and accused as part of the Varsity Blues scandal. And it was just outrageous.
Well, I'll let the listeners know as we get into your story, reading a lot of the reviews of average people and just how taken aback they were by your story, how it was a chilling reminder of how good people can, for purposes that have nothing to do with law and order, can get swept up into something. And you could really get this sense that for a lot of people, this was a wake-up call and very frightening, particularly for parents. So that being said, if you would tell us the story.
Well, it's pretty outrageous. Let me start with, what some of these other parents did was outrageous. I would be outraged as a parent if my highly qualified child got bumped by a less qualified, family who cheated on tests, who bribed coaches, and so forth. And that's what was happening here. There were about 30 parents who abused their privilege and who broke the law and broke, common standards of decency. We didn't do any of those things. My children were highly qualified on their own merits. For example, my twin daughters got a perfect score in the ACT and a near perfect score. Fewer than 5,000 people out of 1.8 million get a perfect score, right? So they were very qualified. My son had a 93 percentile, and he competed nationally and internationally for a decade, swimming and playing water polo. His high school coach was a nationally recognized coach, recommended him to the USC team. He had a world record swimming, and he joined the USC team. He was one of the fastest on the team. His swim times prove that. And so we were very different. And my donations went to IRS certified charities and to USC. And USC gave us a receipt for our donations. So this was not a bribe. This was not false credentials for kids who were unqualified. And we didn't do anything fake. We never gave any fake information. The only fact that the government had was that Singer changed my son's profile, and he changed my son's swim time by 8%. That was it. And in the end, I deducted the donation to USC on my tax return on the wrong line. And that apparently is also a crime. So that was my big crime, is that Singer, the guy we trusted, who was recommended to us by Goldman Sachs, changed my son's swim time on a one-page profile by 8% and some other things. So that was it. And my son was qualified. He joined the team. What it turns out, as we went through this process, we found out why I was indicted. Singer had 3,000 accounts. The Singer was the guy at the center of this who was the confessed con man who was putting together. He had the largest consulting firm on the West Coast for many parents. He had 3,000 parent accounts. 99% of them were never charged. Only 1% are what he called dark side accounts. I wasn't one of them. But he also only had one parent who was based in Massachusetts. That was me. All of his accounts were based in California and a few sprinkled in some other states like Florida and New York. The Boston-based prosecutors uncovered this case from a recommendation or referral from somebody unrelated from a Connecticut case on a separate charge, a separate crime. That led them to uncover that Singer had all these California-based people, Felicity Huffman, Lori Loughlin, lots of other famous people. Steve Jobs was a client, many other famous people. And so with that information, they thought that this would be a high-profile case that could be good for their careers. And so they immediately needed to think about how they could manufacture venue in Boston to keep this trial in Boston so the media spotlights would come here for their careers and not go to their counterparts in California. To help manufacture venue, I was the only person who lived in Massachusetts. So despite the overwhelming evidence that they had that I was innocent, they charged me and treated my family like collateral damage in this process. So even though we were innocent and they falsely charged us, they were able to do that and get away with it through the trial process. And then once we lost at trial, because another outrageous part of this story, we got it all overturned at the appeals court level, all the core charges. But at this point, we're struggling with where do we go to get our reputations back? It's been 7 years of emotional, financial, and physical hell for my children, my wife, and myself.
We are talking with John Wilson, author of Varsity Blues, Scandal Within the Scandal. What the beginning of all of the targeting of you, was there at first a sense that, well, clearly they're mistaken. Once they dig into this, they will realize that we didn't do anything wrong. And then if that was a point, when did things change? What was your mindset, and how did it evolve as you began recognizing that this isn't something that that's just going to go away?
Right. It was outrageous from day one. I've never been arrested or charged with a crime in my life before. I got off an airplane in Houston, Texas to go to a client meeting, and two FBI agents arrested me at the airport. As they handcuffed me and pushed me against the wall, they tell me I'm under arrest for honest services fraud. I was shocked. But I was even more shocked by their answer when I asked them, what does that mean? What is that charge? And they said, we don't know. We've never heard of it before. I said, how can you be arrested for something you don't even know what it is? They said, it's an unusual charge. We've never heard of it. And they proceeded to book me. They then threw me literally into a federal prison in Houston, 850 inmates in this prison. I was stripped down there by the prison guards, hosed down like an animal by two guards with hoses, given a jumpsuit. And before they put me in my cell block, which had about 60 people in it, they warned me and said, watch your back in here. You're the only older white guy here, and they're going to assume you're a pedophile. And they hate pedophiles in here, and someone may try to stab you with a shiv. And so I spent literally the next 2 days terrified that I would be stabbed by someone in this federal prison when I had no idea what I was even being charged with. And that was just day one of this 7-year nightmare scenario. And it got worse and worse from there.
Did it get to the point where you went from, okay, they're just mistaken, to these are actually bad people that don't care whether I did anything wrong? They're just after me in order to make their career?
Yeah, it got to that point very quickly. Not only the rough handling of the initial arrest, but even in the courthouse. And this was reported in Law 360. In the courthouse, when we pled not guilty with all the other celebrities in Boston, my wife and I stayed back because we didn't have a flight to catch. We're the only Boston people. So the media throngs were crazy with the Hollywood celebrities. We decided to wait back. I told our lawyer to go home. We don't want to pay for our lawyer to sit there while we're just waiting for the media circus to die down. My wife and I waited to the end of the day. Before we were leaving, my wife went to the restroom, and the prosecutor came up to me singularly and started talking about taking a plea deal. I looked at her and said, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to take a plea deal. And my wife started coming back. He saw her, and I think panicked and started leaving. I said, besides, isn't it against the rules for you to be talking to me without my lawyer? And I was never more shocked in my life at what he said to me at that point. He said, who do you think makes the rules? And just walks away. That's when we knew we were in for trouble. It's like, this is crazy. I told that to my lawyer. He said, there's nothing you can do to be your word against his word, et cetera. But right there in the Boston federal courthouse, the prosecutor who was leading this up at the time told me, who do you think makes the rules? As he approached me in the courthouse without my lawyer there, violating a number of norms, and asked me to take a plea deal. And then we knew things were going to get worse from there. And they did. They piled on 9 felony charges for me, more than anyone else, almost as many as Bernie Madoff, more than Sam Bankman-Fried. They charged us 180 years of prison time to try to get me to plead guilty to cover up the false charges. Think about that. 180 years of prison time for making a donation for kids who were highly qualified to get a tiebreaker boost. That's how this process kept going. And so we knew they were going to give up. I even went to the extreme of volunteering to take a polygraph test. I took 2 full days of polygraph tests with the former head of the FBI polygraph division, separately quality controlled by the head of the CIA polygraph division, who ran the federal government's polygraph school for 10 years in South Carolina. This is the real deal. I passed more than 20 questions over 2 days, all with flying colors. And the government had all that information too, and they ignored it. At my sentencing, they said, those are just self-serving polygraphs. They're not admissible unless we agree to them, and we don't agree to them. And that's the kind of thing they can do. It's just outrageous. So they really were never going to back down. Once they go down this path, it would be too humiliating for them to back down. And just said, we made a mistake.
We're talking with our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. John Wilson is author of Varsity Blues, Scandal Within the Scandal. What about the media's play in this?
The media was, I think, misled by the government. So the government, for example, told the media again and again, they didn't do it in writing, they didn't do it publicly, they did it sub rosa. You read the quotes from the New York Times, it says, John Wilson's son wasn't qualified to play or was an alleged athlete, always with a comma, according to the prosecutors. So the prosecutors was feeding this false narrative to the media. And so they had, no reason to believe that what they were saying wasn't true. They didn't suspect that the prosecutors had an ulterior motive. So even though the government knew my son had a world record, They knew that he was one of the fastest players in the country in water polo, one of the fastest on the USC team, that his USC team, that his coach from high school recommended him. He played on a national championship team in the Stanford Club National Junior Olympics, and he was invited to the U.S. Olympic team twice. They had all that evidence. We know they had it because they blocked it all during my trial. That's another crazy thing that happened. They blocked it all piece by piece during my trial. So they had it all, and yet they fed the media these lies. So the media reported the false statements that the government gave to them, and that's unfortunate. But perhaps the most outrageous media travesty here was Netflix. And we have to fight Netflix, so we're suing them. We won the first battle against them. They came out with a documentary before my trial even happened, which included 10 families that pled guilty and me. And they knew that I was not pleading guilty. And because they pre-announced the movie, we gave them a warning letter in advance, 550 pages long from my lawyers, that included all the exculpatory evidence that was publicly available about my case, including the polygraph test results. They had all that, and they ignored it and just issued their movie without making any notice of that. And to this day, their movie is still out there, smearing me through guilt by association with people who pled guilty when I've had all my charges, core charges, overturned. And it's available now to their 290 million subscribers and 500 million viewers in 190 countries. And it's devastating to my poor son, who's depicted as being a fake athlete.
If it can even be described, what sort of toll has this taken?
It's impossible to really describe as a father seeing your children suffer every day for 7 years, not at the hands of a bully from the schoolyard who might be jealous, but at the hands of federal prosecutors who should know better, who are supposed to defend innocent children, not falsely smear them, and by USC, who threw my son under the bus at the trial. They said that this was all a bribe, and that my son didn't play on the team, even though he was registered with the NCAA, and by Netflix, who falsely depicted us. So to see your children suffer at the hands of these three Goliaths has been unbearable as a father. And to watch my poor wife, as she almost every night cried herself to sleep, and still cries herself to sleep, worrying about our children's future. It's just impossible to be helpless as this is all happening. And even though all of my core charges have been overturned, where do we go to get our reputations back? And how do I protect my children for the future? It's just an impossible situation to deal with.
We're talking with our author of the week, John Wilson, Varsity Blues, Scandal Within the Scandal. Final question. Yeah, I imagine a lot of people probably have said, why did you just, I bet if you just did what the prosecutor wanted and you just pled, it would have been a much easier path to have taken than the one that you did, though in hindsight, we always have that benefit. But how is it that you got through this?
It's been very difficult. We always had the choice to take a plea deal, literally from the first day in that courthouse and forward. And that was the easy path. We knew that. Our lawyers told us the government wins 99.6% of the time. And it would cost millions of dollars to fight. It would take years. But we decided to fight for three reasons, really. One, if we confess falsely to a crime I didn't commit, it would reinforce the government's narrative, the false narrative, that our kids weren't qualified. Remember, what happened here at its core was parents who had unqualified kids were bribing and cheating and faking profiles so they can get their unqualified kids in. My kids were qualified. If I pled guilty, it would feed that false narrative, and it would just damn my children to live for the rest of their lives with this scarlet letter that they weren't qualified and that their own father didn't believe they were qualified. I couldn't damn my children that way. The second reason I fought was because I couldn't live with myself. My DNA wouldn't let me plead publicly guilty to a crime I didn't commit. And the third reason we fought is what the government did, Netflix did, and USC did here is wrong, and we're doing everything we can to hold them accountable and to do what we can to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else. Because we can bring attention to this, it can hopefully stop some of the bad actors from doing the same kinds of things to other people.
Our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, John Wilson, the book Varsity Blues, Scandal Within the Scandal, Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Great Escape coming up. Yes, November 9th through the 15th. We will be broadcasting live from the beautiful beaches of Cancun, specifically the Rio Cocolcan Resort, which is just a couple of years old, so it's a newer resort, all-inclusive, higher end, and for just under $2,000 with a garden view per person. That includes everything. So you're talking about your 6-night stay, talking about the airfare, the taxes, your tipping, food, beverages, room service, the liquor cabinet in your room. Yes, you have a liquor cabinet in your room. The last Rio we stayed at, the liquor cabinet had, if I remember right, there was rum, vodka, tequila, and gin, maybe? Seems like those were the four. And then, of course, you have your mini fridge as well. I'm a room service guy. I love getting room service, and there's nothing better than it being covered. So you can just have food delivered to your room and lay there and watch TV. And the thing also is, I know everyone's different. I like to, just for a little bit every so often, lay in the room on the huge, comfortable bed, watching TV, because you can watch it. They always have American channels, like the major networks, and then USA Today, Sci-Fi. They usually have a good combination of channels. I just like to relax like that. Most of the time, of course, outside, but I don't know. It's, to me, part of the enjoyment of it. And then, of course, we do the show 3 days there. And if you want to be part of the show, you can. You don't have to go. You can. You can be on the show if you want to. Christy Fulnecki was just letting us know off air that she and her husband will be going on this trip. So that's always, I love that, because then she can be on the show. Mark Long, who went the past, not the most recent one, but the one prior to that, I think. Is that right? Anyhow, he's always great to be on the show as well, and any of you are welcome to also. Sarah talked to Cam, and we were down to 8 junior suites, but I think there may have been some since then. So we're getting down to it, and that, of course, includes the restriction generally is because of the seats on the plane, not the resort itself. And so I know people oftentimes think, well, those resorts are huge. Surely you can get more rooms. It's a matter of the flight, because we all go together. And if you have not gotten yourself signed up, gotten your slot reserved, then I recommend you go to ksgf.com, get the information. That phone number, Cam is the person that you call at the travel group, and she'll get you set up, started. Maybe you just have some questions. She is the know-all when it comes to all of these trips. She's the one who puts them all together. So great resource for you. She goes along as well, which is a fantastic thing. That way, if you have like, oh, we wanted a king-size bed and we got 2 queens, you get a hold of her, she takes care of it. So that's an added bonus that comes with the all-inclusivity of this year's 2025 Great Escape. Final payment's not due until July, so you can go ahead and get reserved now, even if you don't have the full money to cover it all. But I guarantee you'll be glad that you went along with us. We've got weather in just a moment. Right now, the latest traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today, patchy, dense fog before 10 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a chance for rain throughout the day with a high near 68. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Friday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 72. And looking ahead to Saturday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
We were talking earlier in the program about the number, though I don't know the exact number, but it sounds like a significant number of air traffic controllers that were dealing with the recent technical issues in which they, for a period of time, lost contact with the different airlines that they're supposed to be monitoring, and that they have taken trauma leave because of that. 45 days paid off. And noting that, just as a layman, I find it concerning that people who, I don't know, in my mind, these are people equipped to handle stress, and I can understand if it's like a 9/11 thing or people, some horrific deal where you really got to step away for your own sanity, but a technical glitch like that, I just thought that is whatever. It's a little concerning to me that there are people in those positions that something like that would require them to have a month and a half off of work in order to get over it. Anyway, I wanted to share with you an email that I got regarding this. And it reads, I don't normally do this, but I was listening to your program this morning, and I heard you expressing your opinions regarding air traffic controllers and the recent mishap with the screens blacking out. First, let me say I share your concerns regarding the previous administration's lack of concern with infrastructure. But as someone who deals with literal life and death decisions in a high-stress environment, I believe you're wrong to say that the people who require trauma leave after experiencing the recent events all need to be fired. Now, I mean, I don't want to parse things. Maybe I did say that they all should be fired, but I'm sort of free flow of thought on this, being like, I don't know, it seems like they ought to, maybe if you can't handle that, maybe you should, be fired and somebody replace you. So it's a fair, it's not unfair to interpret it that way, and maybe that is straight up what I said, but anyhow, I don't want to get in the weeds on it because that's not the point. Let's see. As you stated in your program, these people are responsible for hundreds of lives and multiple aircraft traveling hundreds of miles an hour on possible collision courses. Information is crucial in those moments, and when that information is non-existent for any period of time, the results could be hundreds of deaths. For a moment, put yourself in the seat. You have all of these aircraft, all of these lives depending on you to safely guide them to their destination. The vehicles you are guiding are capable of closing distances in seconds. Now you lose all capability for 90 seconds. When the system comes back up, you now have to reassess multiple aircraft, make contact with each, redirect each safely, and now dangerously abbreviated time frame. When dealing with vehicles, reaction time of the operators is also a factor, as well as the reaction time of the vehicle itself you control inputs, or to your control inputs. The amount of stress is horrendous. I agree it takes an unusual individual to do this job, and being short-staffed only increases the pressure. But these are not incompetent or incapable people. They are overwhelmed and doing the best they can. While I can understand your position that 45 days leave is a bit exorbitant, I can personally vouch for the need of some time to decompress. You are absolutely entitled to your opinion, but unless you can sit in the seat and do the job, please think before you speak. Well, first off, I don't agree with the assertion that, if you haven't actually been in the position, then that means that you can't analyze it accurately. I disagree with that. In fact, I think in some instances, being involved in something means that you're less objective. It just depends on the situation. I'm not a black or white person when it comes to that. Now, some of what, to me, it was the 45-day thing. And the person, there's a couple of things that I thought were worthy of addressing in this. Overall, it was a great email with good information. But agreeing with me that the 45-day of leave is exorbitant, well, that was largely what the whole point of the discussion was, that you have to be gone for 45 days. So it seems as if my main point, it wasn't about oh, you got to walk away for a bit or, decompress, but a month and a half? And that's where my real point of, I suppose, as someone who flies every so often, concern is that if that results in you having to take a month and a half off, I have concerns about it. Now, if this were a couple of days or, even a week, I don't know that I would necessarily feel that way. So, it seems as if we're on the exact same page when it comes to that aspect of it. I don't know that there's much other that I said that necessarily is in disagreement with what he is posting here or what he sent me in this email. I agree. Yeah, it is a stressful job. But that's to some degree my point is that having a high stress job in which so many people's lives are in the balance and that you are required to help navigate, having to take a month and a half off because of something like the screen blacking out for 90 seconds, that it concerns me. And maybe it's an overblown concern. Maybe I should feel perfectly comfortable with people that need that much time off because of a situation like that being in charge of my life in that capacity. I may be irrational for feeling that way, but I'm just telling you that's my perspective on it. You do wonder what is the difference between the people who don't need that time off versus those that do. I mean, so obviously in a situation like this, there are some who don't need to take 45 days off. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that those are the sorts of people I would much rather be doing that job as opposed to people who have to take a month and a half off of work because they are so impacted and affected. I'm not even saying it's wrong to be affected by it. I'm not saying that it means that that person is weak, or it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just when it comes to, like equate it to, again, firefighters. Most people don't want to do that job. And there are some people that would not be able to handle the stresses of it, while there are people who are. If it's me and I call 911, I want it to be a firefighter that, I don't know, even maybe there's something wrong with them, but for whatever reason, it doesn't bother them at all. That's just selfishly what I want. Has nothing to do with it, something being wrong with someone or that they're weak or they're soft. Not that that person who sent the email was suggesting that, but it's just, to me, like, who's best for the job and who is going to be able to do the job the most effectively and the best. And we know that people do exist who are able to do that job without taking a month and a half off when there is a 90% blackout in the system. And I just can't help but wonder, well, if there are more people like that available, should we not be trying to get those people in those positions as opposed to those who do need that time off? It's just sort of a merit-based thing. And then maybe those people who have a more difficult time handling the high-stress situation find areas that are less stressful to better accommodate their level and ability to handle those things without needing a month and a half time off. So I don't know whether that necessarily answers any of the feedback that came in that particular email. I think ultimately we don't disagree that much, but I certainly don't want, my intention was not to suggest that people shouldn't be stressed out in those positions and that anyone could do that job. People would oftentimes say, well, I bet you couldn't do it. And if I couldn't, then I shouldn't have that job. I'm 100% on board with that. If there is any job in which I am not as capable as someone else to do it, then yeah, they're the one who needs to be hired and to do that job. But I could be totally overreacting, and I don't love flying anyway. I kind of just assume I'm probably going to die in a plane crash every time. And if I don't, hey, I come out ahead. That's just my irrational thinking on it. So maybe I'm a little irrational when it comes to the air traffic control thing as well. I don't know. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Here's what Kayla had to say about working with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Well, 5 stars, highly likely to recommend. Working with Emily was an absolute pleasure from start to finish. We had the opportunity to both buy and sell properties with House Theory Realty. That can be stressful. And each experience exceeded our expectations. The deep knowledge of the market, strategic insights, keen eye for value truly made a difference every step of the way. Beyond their experience, they were a genuine delight to work with, professional, responsive, and always looking out for our best interest. And you can read the different reviews. In fact, if you go to Emily's Facebook page, the Emily Johnson House Theory Realty Facebook page, and then scroll down, and then there's her Zillow link, and you can see a lot of there are reviews on Facebook, but also Zillow, and that'll give you just a sense of what sort of work it is that she does based off of the oftentimes very, very detailed feedback people in this area give her whenever she helps them buy and sell a home. That's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. So here's a weird thing that happened. There's this house that Morgan and I have been to in the past because we were friends with the owners. And they ended up putting it on the market at one point, and it sold. And it was one of those things afterwards, every time I drive by, it's like, man, I wish we had bought that house.
Yeah.
Just really, because it's on some land. It's just it's a neat house. And yesterday I drive by it, and there's a for sale sign. Right? So yes, but I don't need that right now. But anyway, I look it up just to see if they had done any upgrades, the people who bought it, and just how much. And while I'm scrolling through, you start looking at other houses, and then there's only one other house that in the last 10 years that was for sale once, and then it was bought, and I always thought, oh, I wish we had bought that and that house also went on the market just in the last couple of
I'm
years.
telling you,
Anyway, it's like that.
maybe it's time for you to move.
And you want to know what road the second of the two homes is on?
Huh.
So you remember a few weeks ago we had the gal on about...
Is it Holder or Holden?
Whatever that road, it's on that road.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's my favorite house on that road.
Well, it could be a private drive.
Well, the other road that I think is... But see, that wouldn't be accessible either, I don't think. Anyway, I don't get the weeds on that.
Anyway, so it's down that area.
It is now, yeah.
How
I thought,
cool.
what are the odds? Because
I'm
it's
telling
the
you,
only
you're
two
supposed to
homes.
move.
Man, it's such a hassle. It's just such a hassle.
It's not with Emily Johnson.
They're both, well, that's true. No, well, that part of it, but the actual moving part, where you have to put things in boxes.
Hire movers.
And then, it's so expensive. I know it's like, well, then just shut up about it. That's part of moving, right? I learned, for me, moving across town is harder than moving across the country, because when I moved back to the area from Wisconsin, you had to do it all in one swoop, right? You had to load it all. I did a pod, one of those
Oh,
pods where they drop it off, you fill it up, and then they deliver it. But then, so when I first moved back to the area, I was just rented a home, and then upon purchase of a home, it was moving from Springfield to Republic, and I swear it took 3 weeks. Just, well, let's load a little bit up and we'll take it, and we go back and forth and back and forth. And I thought, man, when you are moving 12 hours away, then it really does force you to actually just do it all in one fell swoop, as opposed to just the little bit here and a little bit there that drags on forever and ever in a day. Anyway, that's just a little story I thought I'd just share. More John Fetterman news. Going to share that here in just 2 minutes. I'm Nick Reed. Democrats are really, they've decided they're trying to oust Fetterman. Here's the latest headline. Senator John Fetterman raises alarms with outburst at meetings with union officials, AP sources say. This all started with a piece in the New Yorker, I think it was the New Yorker. And all of a sudden, for years, we're being told his people have known there's something wrong with him. He's unmedicated. He's off his rocker. And so here we go again with the Democrats and an attempt to overthrow one of their own, because they've just decided that he's of no use to them any longer. He needs to be replaced by a different Democrat. But again, someone that many of us for a couple of years have noted something's wrong with the guy. They've said he's just fine until it's time, of course, to get rid of him. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.